This podcast discusses a non-stop, thrilling adventure fantasy series set in the brutal and competitive world of a military college for dragon riders, which includes potential spoilers for all published material. This episode includes elements regarding chronic pain, dismissive medical providers, bullying, slut-shaming, perilous situations, death, and explicit language, including sexually explicit language. Listeners who may be sensitive to these elements, cross the parapet at your own risk and prepare to enter the Wing Readers. Welcome to the Wing Readers, where we deep dive into the Empyrean series chapter by chapter, theorize, and overanalyze. I'm Abby.
I'm John.
And I'm Cassie.
And today we are covering 4th Wing Chapter 10. Here is your friendly reminder that we will be spoiling future books, so listen at your own risk. We're going to go into a battle brief, which is our podcast / personal news. Just wanting to share, peek behind the curtain. We have released through episode 4 at this point, and as of now, we have downloads in 22 states in the US where we are based, as well as the following countries: the United Kingdom, Germany, Sweden, New Zealand, Australia, Denmark, Canada, Russia, Croatia, Hungary, and Singapore. So, if any of you from any of those places are listening, shout out. That is awesome. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you're enjoying it.
Woo!
Oh, shout out to the person living in Budapest. If you are so inclined, I am very interested in visiting Budapest so that I can play the song Budapest while I pet the cats of Budapest. So, if you wanted to, hook a bro up, let me know.
And Cassie had some more personal battle brief news that she wanted to share. Cassie?
Yes, so I went to the doctor and the physical therapist this week. And I brought up hypermobility with my doctor. She ran through some of the super basic joint tests with me, kind of like the PT before did, but also he only looked at my upper body and she had me do like some leg stuff. Of course, I wasn't as flexible that day as I was with the previous PT, so I didn't get as many points, but she did agree that I've got a number of signs of hypermobility. She didn't say whether she was going to put that in my chart or not, but she did ask if I wanted to pursue genetic testing or anything else to like uncover other things or like what the underlying cause is. I don't know if EDS is the answer for me. I don't know what other things can be genetically tested. I also know there's like a million kinds of EDS, so who knows? But it did make me feel better that she's at least leaving the conversation open, and I can pursue that later. So then I had my PT appointment, and I had like almost zero pain that day. All of the exercises were way easier.
Yay.
I have had some flare-ups in between my sessions because I had 3 weeks between PT this time. And I did have like some really bad hand pain days, and I mentioned last time that my ankle is hurting less, but that's only on like on one axis, and it still would hurt if I wiggled the other ways. This week, that's been a lot better, and it seems like some of my strength is improving. So one day, I'm still fantasizing about running again, but I know that my calves are too weak for that right now, and I'll just cause another flare-up if I try that. So basically right now I'm going to continue with the physical therapy and improve the muscles around the joints and all that. I had this huge, like, frustrating revelation because I've been listening to a bunch of podcasts and reading a bunch of articles about this. So part of the issue is that because the joints are so lax, the muscles have to work overtime just to support your body. When normally, like, regular people's joints are just helping out with that, whereas ours are, like, slacking off. Which means that your muscles get more tired, which is why we want to lean on everything, or why we lean into our own joints. But then leaning into our own joints, over and over and over causes that future joint pain. And also leaning on things in general means that we kind of stop engaging those muscles. And so then they're like the two muscle states are like overly tense or not being used at all. And so that's why they get so weak. And the fact that our muscles are just on all the time is why one of the reasons why we get so tired. and why I need
Mhm.
one of the reasons why I need like a minimum 9 hours to function. So
Ah, yeah.
God bless those of us that need those 9 to 10 hours.
I need them. I do not get them. um, I want to say, first of all, I am extremely happy for you, Cassie. But second of all, I'm also extremely jealous.
I know.
And a little bitter piece of my heart is like, mm. No fair. Yeah, because meanwhile I'm still very much stalled in everything. I think I mentioned this last time we had a battle brief, but my doctor, my primary care has pretty much washed their hands of me because I'm strongly disagreeing with their ideas, and they're like, "It's good to get other opinions." And I'm like, "Okay,
Oh,
goodbye." Yeah, she's like, "It's good to do your own research and to seek out other opinions." And of course, it was via my chart message, so who knows tone. She could have been completely
yeah.
genuine, but that is
I
not how
hate
I read
that.
it.
It's just funny that you say that
So,
because I'm sitting here with my legs just casually out in front of me, and I'm like, oh, my knees hurt.
mhm, mhm.
They shouldn't hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, and I had a particularly low point this week, which I shared with the two of you in our group chat that uh, really I've been so limited in any exercise because of my pain level, and consistently the only one I've been able to do is yoga. And this week yoga was incredibly painful. Even restorative slow flow yoga where we're just holding stretches was incredibly painful, and I had to stop several different stretches and come out of them, and it was just a very demoralizing time. So I'm just counting down the days until my next appointment where hopefully someone will listen to me and hopefully we'll be able to do something.
Hmm.
So that's where I am.
Yeah.
Sorry to be a downer.
Super frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Much love to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I need it. Well. But yay, Cassie. And I'm not saying that sarcastically. Like truly, yay, Cassie. I am thrilled. It's giving me hope even while I'm being a little salty about
Actually,
it.
I have a book relevant comment here, which is just that like we've talked about how medically advanced they are. On the other hand, we've got Violet over here who should have been doing all of these like very slow, small muscle exercises her whole life to
Mhm.
get this muscle
Mhm.
tone up to help her support her body, and no one is doing that for her.
Imogen will though.
Good old Imogen.
Thanks, Im. Okay. Well, that's it for battle brief, I believe. Anything else?
Oh, I was talking with Drew about this stuff, and he was trying to figure out like why, for example, we were talking about locking your knees when you stand, and like why wouldn't you register that as also uncomfortable? And he's throwing words around like nociception, which just means like your body's ability to sense like pain and sensation. And
Mhm.
I just had this thought that like I think part of it is that these weird positions that help hold our bodies up aren't necessarily more uncomfortable than just the regular existence.
Yeah,
And so even though they're like not good positions to be in and are uncomfortable,
it's not
it's
any better or worse.
it's discomfort plus a benefit of feeling supported versus
Yep,
the alternative is just being tired and uncomfortable and feeling also unstable. So,
makes sense.
yeah, discomfort is the norm.
Hmm. Shouldn't be, and yet. Okay, well, getting more back on track with our text here. We're going to send it over to our resident scribe John to break down the epigraph of chapter 10.
To the book.
As I like to do every time I bring forward one of these epigraphs, I always like to talk about, the nose that we might get, the bouquet we might understand, the I can't think of any other words that line up with this metaphor, so I'm just going to drop it.
The sillage, the throw, the waft that comes off
Does it
the
have good
page.
legs? We have a quote from one of my favorite sources in the entire series, the Book of Brennan, this time from page 46. So notably, we've gotten through a good 40 pages since the last time we saw the Book of Brennan at the very beginning of these 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And in those 40 pages, you gotta wonder how much he's actually been teaching that we haven't gotten a glimpse of yet. Like, what has he been passing on about history class or other things?
Yeah, honestly, it's probably information that Violet doesn't really need due to her scribe training, because I would assume it's a lot of academics. Maybe
Stuff that
some,
Mira wouldn't have learned.
yeah, things that Mira would probably need.
Right, and like ways to help her remember dates or something like that.
Yeah.
But our quote is, "Don't underestimate the challenge of the gauntlet, Mira. It's designed to test your balance, strength, and agility. The times don't matter for shit. Only the way you make it to the top. Reach for the ropes when you have to. Coming in last is better than coming in dead."
Amen.
Take that, Tynan.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty straightforward one. It's directly related to what we will be seeing in this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And I have some gripes with Brennan that we'll get to very shortly, because I feel like he does not prepare Mira nor Violet very well for the gauntlet at all, when that's the whole purpose of this book, but we'll get there. Before we jump into the chapter, we're going to send it over to Cassie to discuss some of the Gaelic pronunciations and meanings of names we'll see in this chapter.
Okay, this is a big chunky one, guys. I've got several new words with a couple potential interpretations, some great comments from people on that Reddit thread, and also a correction and some shoutouts. So,
Awesome, let's do it.
from the top, are you ready for this, John? The first word is Wanya logic. Now I'm gonna break
When
that down.
Lloydzig.
Nope, it's not Lloydzig.
When Lloydzig.
And it's not however the audiobook pronounces all 4 vowels in that first half.
123, about green dragons.
Yes.
Okay, say it again now that I'm looking at the word.
Uanya logic.
Okay, I'm not completely against that.
Mm-mm.
So breaking this down.
It tracks.
Actually, first, my first comment about this word is this is the word that tipped me off to the fantasy words being Scottish Gaelic based. However, I did not catch it in this chapter. I caught it in chapter 9 of Iron Flame, if that gives you a sense of how quickly I was whizzing through these books. I'd already been saying the other dragon names as if they were Scottish Gaelic, but I didn't catch that I was doing that until I saw this word, and I was like, nobody else would just think to put a U, an A, and an I next to each other, and then an E at the end of a random word. So Uanya is the word for green.
Makes sense.
And the logic part, that's not exactly how you would spell it in Gaelic. There's no S. So that's probably one of her just playing around with it, trying to make it clearer how to pronounce it. So basically, this is just the word logic, but transliterated into Gaelic. And it's one of those examples of a D in a word making a J sound. So they're not always a hard D. The other one we get is, it's got some more of those silent letters. I don't remember if this came up on any of the reels that we were throwing around between each other. I think this one would be Akorin or Ikorin, something like that.
I know where you're getting these from. Give me a second to go find them.
Now this one is fun because it's another one where she's taken a couple words and crammed them together, and we have a couple different options for what this means.
Okay.
My my favorite is the original theory by isolatedcolorYT, our Reddit reference, who included this as their original interpretation and then did a strike through but left it in. And they said, my best idea so far is that fai means to obtain, and koren is similar to kuran, which means carrot, since this is about the orange dragons.
Obtain carrot.
That's probably not right.
The word carrot was used right before this, so that's not that crazy because she describes them as apricot or carrot.
Yes, but she did entirely change the spelling, so it's not related to the word Quran anymore. So then we get our two realistic interpretations.
Okay.
So we've got commenter Mikan Yukihara, who says, I don't know anything about Gaelic, but I just went on the dictionary link you gave us. Is it possible that it's faik plus oran? Faik is the word for seeing. So like hamia faiking is how you say I am seeing something or I see blank. And oran is another one of those, could be playing around with spelling. If you put the S at the end, it's literally orange. Orange. So seeing orange is the potential,
Okay.
the potential interpretation there.
Mm-hmm.
Then we also get Logan's Run, who speaks Irish Gaelic, and so it's not Gaelic, it's Gaelga, I think maybe is how you say that. And in Irish, Coran is the plural of hook or sickle or spear, and fiach can be a prefix used to mean wild. So fiach chorin could be like wild spear or something like that.
Okay.
Which I think, when they're talking about the different tail types is possible. If we're talking about, let's see, is this the name of a dragon? Because Wanya Logic was more
It's
of
the
a
main
race.
line of the
Orange.
So if I remember right, Wanya Logic is these are all kind of the origin line of that breed.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least one of the main origin line.
Yes.
Okay, yep. So we are talking kind of about generic line, the lines of each color. So my guess is that since this isn't the name of a specific dragon, it's probably the seeing orange definition.
I don't know. I kind of like the wild dagger or wild
Wild spear.
Wild spear, because they talk about orange dragons being unpredictable, the most unpredictable of dragon kind. They're wild, free, war-loving spirits, and so wild.
If she was a linguist, I would totally give her credit for both. Since she's not, she might have just stumbled into an accidental convenient pun here. Oh, I did. Sorry. IsolatedcolorYT did reply to Mikan Yukihara before they updated that is their official interpretation. Now that you mention it, I forgot faik was a thing, and somehow orange is just the color orange. I don't know how I decided the C needed to be part of the second word instead of the first. So it could just be faik plus orange, which would make it sea orange. Much more logical than obtain carrots. Lol.
I do still like obtain carrots.
I was just laughing through my entire note collection for this section. Okay, on to my corrections and shoutouts. We were talking about Mama Sorengil's dragon, and I had forgotten that that word also has one of those Farabakti vowels in it. So it's not Amshe or Amsir or whatever we said. It's
Amsir.
Emishith. So the M and the S have a little blank between them. So Amishith, it's got that Farabakti vowel in the middle. It's also got an R at the end, and those R's tend to be pronounced more at the front of the mouth. So it's not quite a tapped R like you would get in Spanish, or even in English words. We use them more for D's in the middle of words, like ladder. Technically, that's the same sound, even though it's very hard to wrap our minds around that.
Oh, so it's an not an R?
It's not it's a tap sound. So for this specific one, it's not quite that either. It's like halfway between an R and a the. So you'll hear in different accents, some of them will pronounce it more as an R, and some of them will pronounce it more as like a hard TH sound.
Can you say it one more time?
Amashith.
Okay.
Amashith. Shiz.
That word hurts me. It hurts my soul. I'm sorry is all you're going to get from me.
I've already programmed my brain to say Omshur instead, that's what you're getting.
Honestly, that's for John, great. If you could get your brain to do Amashur, just a little hop between the M and the S.
Okay.
Then that's as close as I expect English speakers to get. I say as an English speaker, but I'm really into this, so. So I caught this kind of weird R sound from listening to the way different words were pronounced in different accents when I was trying to learn, which originally was through Duolingo. I also found this podcast called Coffee Break Gaelic, which has been very helpful. And their episode 1.09 is actually where I caught this pronunciation of emishes, because they are talking about the weather and like how to ask about the weather and have a conversation about that sort of thing.
Okay.
And I'd forgotten that that was even in there the first time I listened through, because also I learned a different word for weather through Duolingo, which was antashija, shija, which is another word with a D in the middle that sounds like a j. And this specific episode, when I was re-listening to it, also includes commentary specifically about those R sounds at the end, because another word that comes up in that episode is cold, which is fuath.
Okay.
So the learner on that episode catches it and is like, wait, what are you saying? Can you explain that some more? So if you're interested in that sort of thing, I highly recommend this specific podcast. They also have a website with additional like lessons and things like that if you're interested. I do recommend them specifically over Duolingo at this point because of them actually having a Gaelic speaker running those lessons and those podcast conversations. Whereas Duolingo has recently decided that linguists are passé and they
Oh.
would much rather delegate all the work to AI,
Oh. Hmm.
which I have very, very strong feelings about. I don't remember if this actually got stayed in a previous recording that we
I
did
haven't gotten to that one yet, so
or
probably.
if it will, but we have had conversations as a group about our feelings on AI and different ways it can be useful or not. And this is a specific case that I just throw my hands up in the air and walk away.
It's well, I'm glad you said that because I was gonna say Duolingo sponsor the pod, but maybe never mind.
Which is frustrating because it was really cool that they actually had a Scottish Gaelic unit, not unit, but like they have that language in that app, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not a very big language. And actually, if you look at Scottish Gaelic speakers worldwide, there are very few native speakers and there are a huge number of learners specifically because of how accessible it was on Duolingo.
Mm.
So the fact that we can't trust them going forward is really frustrating.
Yeah.
Also, there's an Instagram account called Speak Gaelic that's at SPEAKGAELIC on Instagram. And they're a little bit more helpful if you've already got a little bit of Gaelic learning under your belt. They're a great way to like practice. They'll like throw out phrases like translate this and then give you the correct pronunciation, or they'll just do some really comedic weird scenarios in Gaelic on their account. So I recommend them as well. A couple other consonant pronunciations. So I was talking about that D being a J sound. So with our dragon that we've been calling coda, there's two consonants in here that we could pronounce a little differently. So that D being a J, we can throw that in the middle. And then that GH at the end isn't necessarily entirely silent all the time. It depends on your accent. We talked about at the beginning of the word Korean for sun, there's that GH, so it's just a really soft G. So we can put both of those into coda and it would be koja,
Interesting. I'll still be saying it the first way.
which is totally fine. I just wanted to correct myself from last time. And I also previously said that the TH is silent, and this is actually context dependent. So the TH is actually an H sound. It's
Mm.
just that if a TH is at the end of something like ka, like the H doesn't really contribute very much to the
Mm-hmm.
pronunciation. But when it's in the middle of a word like laha, which is the laha, sorry, I said that more like a CH, laha, which is the word for day, it just makes an H. So it will kind of begin a new syllable, but it doesn't contribute much to the end of a syllable. And this is relevant to the only word that I have next time. So
Okay.
I wanted to
Stay
bring it up
tuned.
now.
Stay tuned. All right. Well, it's time to get into chapter 10, and it is time for NAVARRIAN Ninja Warrior.
Woo!
Ah, okay. All right. So we are at the base of the gauntlet. Violet looks up and up and up and up in fear. And even Rhiannon is having a little bit of apprehension. We get a lot of description of this gauntlet. We get it in pieces. So I'm gonna do my best as we go to describe it. I am either the best or the worst person to be covering this chapter, depending on your perspective. with
Yup.
my with my need to visualize and understand the space because this is quite confusing. I'm working on my own diagram of what this looks like. So first, it took me forever to even just read this chapter and to even be able to put it into my own words in my little summary, but also just trying to make sense of it all. So hopefully, I can do it justice. But we get the beginning of our description. It is 5 switchbacks up the ridge line. And I kind of got an answer to this when we were discussing before recording that I was imagining the trail up to the M at the University of Montana, where we have all spent some time. And John had brought that up himself. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not alone here.
Shout out Mount Sentinel.
So we have Orly. Is that how we say her name?
That's how I say her name.
Okay. I think this is one that when I was initially reading it, my brain just kind of skipped over and I'm like, Earl. like, Earl.
Yeah, it's like the word aura, but with Lee at the end.
Yeah.
Orally, like a little aura.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say this is
Orally.
actually a old.
This is a real name.
It's a real name, and it was popular in like the 1700s and 1800s to the extent that
Okay.
there's actually a famous song out there about of a man singing to his lost love orally, and so every
Okay.
chorus ends with the word orally, and it's constantly rhymed against. And
Naturally.
I'll look it up and like hum a few bars for you.
Link in the show notes.
Yep. Yep. So Orly is stoked. Violet and Rhiannon are flabbergasted by this, but we learn that Orly's dad is a retired writer, which I think is the first time that we get a mention of retired writers. We did talk about that in a previous chapter.
Yeah, I did note here that this is retirement confirmed, except for we don't actually get any more information about like
What
how it
happens?
works or why.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, so her dad is a retired writer, and her older brother Chase is a current writer who is stationed with the Southern Wing. Orly likens it to desk duty due to the low level of action at the Crovelin border. So their dad, as they were growing up, would set up obstacle courses for the two of them to practice. And I wrote, it is such a shame that she dies on it. like,
I know.
especially on the one, the like, hello foreshadowing that we'll get to in like literally 5 seconds. But she dies on the one that she specifically points out, like, hey, be careful on this one, watch out. Here's a tip. Like, she knows what she's doing, and it's such a damn shame.
It's even more of a shame given the fact that she's the daughter of a writer, and it's the glimpse of a dragon that dooms her, basically.
Yeah.
Just imagine like you're auditioning for like Wipeout or Ninja Warrior or something. And there's this person next to you who like you just decided like 6 months ago, yeah, you're gonna do this. Oh no. Something beeped.
I sent a message in
Oh, okay.
admin with the link.
Okay.
It's orally spelled different, but the irony is not lost on me on the fact that he's singing about a dead lover. Orally
Yes.
dies either way.
Ah, quite fitting. I wonder if that's why she named her that.
Very
So
possibly.
imagine you're auditioning for one of these and you've just decided. It's like those people who decide, oh, I'm gonna run a marathon in a month because my friend asked me to. Terrible idea. But then the person next to you who's actually been training for like a really long time, like was an athlete beforehand, and they're the one who dies.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a real tragedy.
Sorry, you said that and all I could hear was, it'd be a real tragedy if someone messed your stuff up. Like some mobster walking up and be a real shame if someone knocked your knees in.
Oh, I was just listening to something about that on some podcast where they were talking about using emojis in court and how like it's you have to really look at context to decide if something means something or not. And the comparison was like, yeah, it's when a mobster threatens you and they're like, it's a really nice suit. Be a shame if something happened to it. It's like
Mhm.
it on the surface, oh, they're just complimenting your suit and like don't want you to get it ruined. But no, it's actually They're
Mm-hmm.
threatening you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Violet thinks that it looks more deadly than fun, but decides to go with positive thoughts. Orly warns them to look out for, quote, those giant posts jutting from the side of the cliff. They spin, and you can get crushed between them if you're not fast enough. Oh, good. I was wondering when it might get difficult, Rhiannon mutters. So these logs mentioned by Orly are 3 feet, not wide, I wrote wide, long, jutting out from the cliff. And they are like steps. And this is one of those things where the way that I read it initially was wrong. So live editing my notes here. uh, so they serve as steps on the fourth, I believe, ascent. Let me check my 1, 2, 3. Yes, they on the fourth ascent, about 2/3 of the way up is what Orly says, and this is the point where Violet's like, "Okay, thank you for letting me know. I wish Brennan would have mentioned that."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, you spent 40 pages on what we can only assume is classwork, and didn't even think to mention, okay, here are each of the obstacles, here's what they do, and here's the best approach to them.
He didn't
So
want to ruin the challenge.
He's showing them how to cheat.
so devil's advocate, first things first, is the likelihood that Mira was going to die on this thing high?
No.
So, was it worth pages when he's only thinking that the book's going to go for Mira? Maybe not. Other thing that I would say is, like, if I were Brennan and I were the strategic thinker that we know Brennan is, if I put too many hints and too many details in this book, someone's going to figure out that my sibling knows way too much about things that they shouldn't know about. And so...
Sure. But I mean, Orly knows all about it. And it doesn't seem like it's a bad thing for her to know about it. So maybe, actually, you know what? Maybe Mira knows all about the gauntlet already.
Maybe Brennan just assumed that Mira was, because we know that Mama Sorrengail was training Mira as a project. She was the daughter that Mama Sorrengail had chosen to be her step forward to fixing everything that was fucked up.
Yeah.
And so we could safely
And
assume that maybe Mira.
That's why they didn't have enough time for Violet to do little tiny wrist exercises.
Yes.
Okay, so I can get behind that, because if Orly knows about it, Mira surely knows about it and has been practicing on something similar. Okay. I'll forgive Brennan this time. This time.
I also just want to point out, like, we're staring up this cliff at this massive climbing obstacle. And it's hilarious to me that even though it wasn't intentional, Violet's been training for this her entire life. All of the trees that she's been climbing, all of the parapets that she's been going over. This girl's been climbing up walls on castles since she was, like, walking. Despite the fact that she is easily breakable, as she describes herself. And so, like...
Also fair. Sounds like my childhood.
Yeah.
Like, I would totally point out that, technically speaking, Violet was being trained for this, too. I think there's a reason Mama Sorrengail didn't get mad that Violet was constantly
she wasn't
doing
being
this
trained. She was doing independent study with no
Yes.
mentor.
She had Dane, but yeah, right, it was an independent study.
Dane's not an advisor. He's the one you drag along. He's the other student you conned into doing an independent study with you against their will.
So, the gauntlet is causing Violet to actually consider for the very first time Dane/Markham's offer to ditch the Rider's Quadrant. And she says, after all, there aren't any death courses in the Scribe's Quadrant. But the angel on her shoulder that just wants her to believe in herself speaks up, saying she's made it this far and gives her hope. Riddick wonders why it's called the Gauntlet, and Merriam-Webster defines.
Oh my goodness, you did
In this
not.
essay, I will.
Yes, yep. So of course we get the explanation in a little bit about gauntlets being armored gloves, but that's not what we're talking about right now. So Merriam-Webster defines gauntlet as applicable in this context as an open challenge, a severe trial, a line, series, or assemblage, especially one that poses some sort of ordeal, and finally, a double file of man. That doesn't make any sense. A double file line of men, maybe, facing each other and armed with clubs or other weapons with which to strike at an individual who is made to run between them. So, that's where you get run the gauntlet. And apparently, this meaning of this word does not exist in this universe, which I think is really interesting
I need to
because.
correct you. So gauntlets have a number of different reasons. Like you have the steel gauntlets that are like that go on your wrist that they talk about in the book. But
The ones
if
that you
I
throw
remember,
to start it.
yep. But if I remember correctly, and this is where it really matters. Yep. Okay, they still do it. So when you go through Marine training, one of the later stage tests that they put every Marine through that you have to pass to be able to proceed forward is called the Gauntlet. It's a 48-hour or 72-hour. It's brutal. Like this
Mhm.
test was intentionally built to put Marines into what is considered to be the worst physical exertion conditions that they could find themselves in to literally break them or not. And the
Mhm.
fact that Rebecca Yaros's husband is a Marine, I think that she named this the Gauntlet in recognition of this literal race that you have to run to be a Marine. And like the Gauntlet arena exists somewhere in California, as memory serves. And the reason I know about this is at one point in my life, I knew a former Marine who actually helped build that facility. And
Very
they
cool.
described it to me, and I was like, I would
Mhm.
die in the first hour. Like,
Yes. So,
So that sounds like the definition that Abby gave us, though, of an obstacle or a challenge or like
yes.
whatever words were
yes.
in
So,
there.
in universe, I didn't know about this real world gauntlet, so that makes sense as to why she would christen it this after that.
Yeah.
But yes, in our world, we have the meaning of going through an obstacle or an ordeal. In this universe, it doesn't seem like we have that as a definition to this word, which
Well,
I
the
think is
closest.
interesting. Hold on, Cassie, I'm talking. Which which I am going to posit that the etymologic origin of
Ah,
this meaning of gauntlet derives from the gauntlet.
Like the actual.
No, 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 from this obstacle course. That they
Oh,
then get the meaning that we know of an ordeal from this ordeal.
yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot of entomology here. Again, like that one call out is.
entomology?
I think that's
God
bugs.
damn it.
There's zero entomology on page. If there was, I would be telling you about it.
The reason I say God damn it is because when you sent that text message and said etymology, I read it entomology and I'm like, why are we talking about bugs? I don't remember bugs
I'm
anywhere in
talking
this
about
fucking
words.
book. And yeah, no, my brain has a really hard time with etymology and entomology, at least like reading them and saying them. I understand the difference. I just
Yes, yep.
again, I think that she named it this because of her husband and the like again what she was going through when she started writing this book, that she was staying up all night, couldn't sleep because her husband was deployed overseas. But then like they do kind of point out that armor is not an uncommon concept in this world, and the gauntlet glove was the first gauntlet in.
Yes, I'm just talking about like how you get different meanings from words is I think that we're seeing like the in-universe way of their getting
How
our
they
other
earned.
use of this word.
Yeah,
Yes.
how they got their run the gauntlet like we have our run the gauntlet from the Marines.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Okay,
Exactly.
they
okay,
they
now I
they
understand.
do they do sort of nod to that other meaning. Like they don't explain it, but the first thing that Ontario says is that it's called the Gauntlet because this is the cliff that guards the veil. So it's like you have to get through this thing to get to the other thing. You have to get through the obstacle
Yes.
course to become a Marine, or you have to whatever. So
Yes,
like
but
she almost like
see, and I disagree with that though because I think that he is using the word guard as in a literal like a glove, like an armored glove. It is guarding something and
mm,
it's metal, which is slippery, which I think is also very silly. But someone joked about it, I guess, and the name stuck. So, yeah, that's my little interpretation of it all. Yeah, I think that that explanation is a little silly, but it must be this must be how they get their get their meaning of running a gauntlet. Anyways, okay. So Riddick asks, not sure why they call it the Gauntlet. We get a note that it's very chilly down there because they are bathed in shadows. Then Tynan decides to be an asshole for no reason, especially because his answer has nothing clever to do with the word gauntlet. And this is where I'm critiquing his bullying. Because he sneers that it's called that. Something on my notes got erased. This is annoying. Okay.
Would you like us to send the picture back to you?
No, no, it's okay. Thank you.
No, just send back my transcript of her.
I don't even think we're quite at that part yet, but
Probably
anyways.
not.
Tynan sneers that it's to ensure dragons keep coming to threshing by weeding out the weaklings. And I said this would make more sense if it was called something like the weed whacker, but like that has nothing to do with the word gauntlet. Like there's nothing clever there. Like, oh, it's called a gauntlet so we don't get the weak people. And it's like, but that doesn't have anything to do with it being an armored glove. Like that doesn't make any sense, Tynan. Get a little bit better at bullying, please.
He never claimed to be the smartest. He just claimed to be the bulliest.
Yeah. Anyways, this barb was directed at Violet, who glares but ultimately lets it go, mentioning he's been salty since Rhiannon kicked his ass like 2 months ago on assessment day. So he's pretty much been salty this entire time.
Yeah.
Well, and like that kind of tracks. So like they
Yeah.
get into their cruise, and as he's trying to figure out, like think about going to a new school, like when you went to high school as a freshman, and you're like, here's all of these different people, and you're meeting a bunch of different people, but you haven't quite decided which clique you're gonna end up with, and so you're kind of friendly with everybody, but then within a week you fall to one side, and so I very much think that like there was a chance for him to not be an asshole if he had accepted his defeat with any level of grace, but instead he got shamed for it by the Barlows and decided that it was just Jack Barlow, motherfucking Jack Barlow.
Motherfucking Jack Barlow. Yeah. So Riddick snaps back at Tynan to knock it the fuck off. Okay, I got it.
Are you having difficulty reading your handwriting
Yes!
again?
I'm sorry. Okay.
You need to start typing your notes.
I can't.
We need to
It's not
upload
the
that
same.
picture.
I'll upload the picture. It's embarrassing. So Riddick snaps at Tynan to knock it the fuck off, and I wrote, what a king using his large size privilege to stick up for Violet. This turns everyone's heads because Riddick never snaps or uses anything other than humor. Tynan gets aggressive and spins to confront Riddick, but he quite literally cannot measure up, as Riddick is twice as wide and 6 inches taller. Riddick isn't having it, telling him that he doesn't get to be a dick just because he's buddy-buddy with Orin and motherfucking Jack Barlow.
Which, like, this whole scene is quite a thing. Think about that. Riddick is, like, the ultimate class clown. Let's psychologically break this down here. This man is full of insecurities.
When you get the funny person mad.
Yep.
Yeah. This man is definitely full of insecurities. We know it. We just know it. We don't have to guess that hard to figure out that this man's full of insecurities of some capacity. And he's compensating. Yet, as soon as he sees someone else's insecurities being thrown in their face, motherfucker's stamping up and he's gonna throw down.
Amen. Amen. I'm sure it's not quite in my notes yet, but we do learn that in the past 2 months, Riddick has bulked up quite a bit. So, so just need to point that out.
So there's
John's
my boyfriend.
is getting full.
As
So
he should.
Tynan suggests that he hates Violet because she's going to affect their presentation order, since they will be timed both individually and as a group come TFG, which is the final gauntlet, not the friendly giant, in my notes. And he says that dragons won't want to bond a cadet in the last squad. And I wrote, this is rich because she has won all of her challenges and is obviously capable, but the manosphere incels can't handle being bested by women, especially one they view as being so far beneath them.
Manosphere incels. Whoa.
Honestly.
Tell me how you really feel.
No. Because it's even worse than that.
We don't have time for that.
We don't have time. Um, Riddick shoots back that they're not even being timed today, and Sawyer steps between them and shoves Tynan back. He says that time doesn't really matter, as the last cadet last year bonded, while some from the first squad didn't. Tynan calls him bitter, Sawyer ignores him, and this is where Emeterio gives us the etymology, as we mentioned before. Emeterio remarks that the 9 of them have an hour to practice before it is the next squad's turn, and tells them that they're going to need all the time they get based on their performance on the mat. Emeterio reminds the group, aka tells the reader, that while they're practicing the gauntlet for the next 2.5 weeks, challenges are on hold, because he says, as you already know. So that's for us.
Yeah.
Sawyer will be going first as an example, followed by Pryor, Trina, Tynan, Rhiannon, Riddick, Violet, Orly, and Luca. This is the part of my notes that was that was sent over.
Remind
that
me
Cassie
really quick.
transcribed.
Luca's the one that is super indecisive, right?
No,
No,
that's
that's Pryor.
Luca
Luca's the
is
jerky
the
girl.
she's the bitch that gets
Right.
generated right after.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Pryor.
they die seconds apart.
Yes.
Forgive
Yeah.
me.
Emeterio remarks that they are the only intact squad and says Dane must be proud. Emeterio starts to walk away, and when he's out of earshot, Tynan, the coward that he is, waits until he is out of earshot and says Dane is especially proud of Violet. She's like, say what you want about me, but don't talk about my son that way. Like he's the one who needs protecting. Tynan says what everyone is thinking, that Dane and Violet are fucking. Violet starts to instinctually deny before taking a calming breath and telling him it's none of your gad's damn business. Which this gave me a little flashback to high school when everyone is like so concerned, like, are you having sex? And it's like a bad thing to be having sex, but it's a bad thing to not be having sex. And you don't want to feel ashamed if you are, but you also don't want to confirm if you are, because then people are going to call you a slut. And so you just say it's none of your business. And is this anybody or just me? Just me.
I was too absorbed in my little friend group and was, the the budding arrow ace child.
Yep.
In junior year, I was talking anal with seniors, so boys and girls. It was quite a conversation.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know. I remember being very stuck between feeling like, okay, sex isn't like this huge deal and I shouldn't be ashamed or made to feel bad about that, but at the same time, I know people are going to try, so I don't want to like
Mhm.
publicize it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a very
We
weird dynamic.
Yeah, we had enough pregnancies at our school that like clearly it was happening and it like sort of was normal like in theory, but then if anyone that you knew was doing it, it was like, "Oh my goodness."
Yeah. Yeah. And I think my critique of bullying comes from a place of I've been bullied and I've been bullied very poorly in some cases. And in one of those cases, I remember there was a website called ask.fm, if either of you remember that, where you could create a profile and people can
Yes.
anonymously ask you questions.
Yeah.
That's a great thing going into your senior year of high school, I'll tell you that much. And there was already some bullshit with rumors being spread around me about me around school, which I didn't even know about until several years after the fact. And people were very hung up with trying to figure out my sex life. And at one point, when I became kind of over it and was ready to fight back instead of just kind of like wallowing
Mhm.
in being bullying, someone was like, "You are such a slut." And I responded, "That's not fair. I've only slept with like 9 guys so far today."
Today.
Yeah. So, so, yeah, I'm speaking from being on the receiving end of this. Get better. Just be a better bully if you're going to be a bully, I guess. Is what is the moral of this story. Anyways.
Yeah. The closest I got is people would like tell me that I dressed weird or was weird like in middle school and I
And
was
you're
just
like,
like, "Yeah,
"Yeah."
I know. Let me turn it up a notch. Thank you." And so I think that just kind of like shut it like unintentionally shut it down because
They're like,
I wasn't.
oh.
I was legitimately proud of that. I wasn't like trying to turn the tables. So by
Yeah.
the time I got to high school, I was just like, like one of my friends told me, even his older sister was like, "Yeah, that's just the crazy socks girl."
That's a reputation.
And we love her for it.
And then I was perceived as like too naive and childish and innocent to even like I had my first crush in high school and everyone like, fell apart over that. So
Yeah.
no one was speculating about my sex life.
Back on track. So, Violet thinks about these rumors with her and Dane and thinks that she should be getting some if she's going to be accused of it anyways. Then completely underestimates Dane's unwavering hard on for the rules, saying surely he would actually make a move if he wanted to. He would not. His first love is the Codex.
Yup.
Lucas says that it is their business if they're sleeping together, if their fucking is getting Violet special treatment. Rhiannon tells them to shut up, they are not sleeping together. Dane's dad is Violet's mom's aide, so they've been friends since they were little. Tynan obviously didn't know this. He immediately backtracks and starts to blame motherfucking Jack Barlow. But Riddick interrupts and says, listening to Barlow will get you killed. Which it does. So much
Excellent
Maybe
foreshadowing.
Riddick actually has prophecy.
Oh.
Hey, this is before he gets a dragon.
Before a dragon. He's a venom. Riddick is a venom. No, I'm kidding. So, Riddick says it's a good thing that Dane isn't here. Violet silently agrees because Dane would assign Tynan to cleanup duty for a month. Then the devil on her other shoulder pops in to say Xaden would just beat the shit out of him instead.
The better approach.
Amen. Violet represses the thought, and it's time to start. Emeterio says that if they make it to the top, they'll get their time, but they have 9 practice sessions before TFG/ranking for presentation. Rhiannon asks why not start Gauntlet training sooner to give them more time to practice so they won't die. Emeterio says the timing is part of the challenge. Sawyer offers some insight. There are ropes every 6 feet along the course. They are attached at the top and hang all the way down to the bottom. Grabbing one adds 30 seconds to your time, but as Brennan astutely points out, it is better than dying.
Like, think about this for a second. What's stopping someone from just grabbing one of these ropes and climbing it all the way to the top and just taking the 1 30-second penalty?
Good point, because I was going to say when...
Is it 1?
But when Violet grabs it and she is doing a hand over hand, she only takes 1 30-second penalty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
And so,
but
like,
she is still making her way
she's-
through the obstacle.
Yeah, she's using it on an obstacle rather than just climbing all the way up. But I feel like I had this thought at some point too, because like before I became an adult and gained a bunch of weight, like as a child, I loved climbing ropes. I could have climbed that whole thing up there. Like that would have been ideal.
Yeah.
So I think it comes up at some point and they explain, but I don't remember.
Maybe. I don't think
it
in this chapter.
It probably just has to do something along the lines of like, you can do that, but are the dragons going to respect it?
Well, honestly, Violet's finding different ways to get around things, and that gets Taryn's attention because she is very cunning.
But this is also like a sort of like a cop out. Like she's still engaging with the obstacles as opposed to just avoiding them entirely. It's like taking the stairs.
See, I'm just thinking about me. I would crawl across the parapet, and then I would just climb up the rope, and I'd be like, I did it! What are you talking about? I did it!
And then you'd have to deal with Orally calling you a cheater and saying, you're disqualified.
No,
and
not
I would
Orally.
say,
Aura.
Amber.
Or Amber.
Amber.
There's
Sorry,
too many
Amber.
of these. Amber is the one that would be calling you a cheater.
Yeah.
And I would say, bitch, there's no cheating. Is it in the codex? No. Okay, anyways. So speaking of those stairs, Riddick points to them, and these stairs are going straight up. They're quite steep, but they provide a much easier path, but those are only allowed when you have already made it through presentation. Emeterio turns the gauntlet on with his magic, and shit starts moving. Quote, the 15-foot log at the start of the uphill climb begins to spin. The pillars on the third ascent shake. The giant wheel at the first switchback starts its counterclockwise rotation, and those little posts Orally mentioned, they all twist in opposite directions.
So you ready for sad I was today years old moment?
Uh-oh.
I was listening to the audiobook earlier for this chapter in preparation for this, and I got
Mm-hmm.
to thinking about it and I was like, you know what? The first time I read this book, I legitimately asked myself, how do you suppose they're powering all of this movement? Do you think that there's some dragon in the back end that's just blowing
they plug it
fire
in.
on a boiler? Right, like where is the energy coming to operate this from? Only for me to today realize it's runes. It's all fucking runes. And
Do you think so?
yes.
I mean, it sounds like he's just using the casual magic to make everything move, like how they open doors, but like
Yeah,
bigger.
Do you think Emeterio is standing there all day using minor magic that extensively to move those, like, think about the size of the objects he's moving. He's not rotating those himself because Violet can barely move a boulder the size of her hand with her lesser
I
Yeah,
magic.
don't
she's a
know.
newbie.
And so
I don't
yes,
know.
Like,
I think that he is somehow like reaching out with lesser magic to engage a rune into something, like a switch. But then the rune is pulling power, much like the mage lights do, and is doing all of the movement for them.
I could see that.
This is convincing. However, I would say this is more of a today I hypothesized moment and not a today I learned moment because it doesn't say.
I put money on this. If someone asked Rebecca Yaros, how does the Gauntlet run, she's going to say runes. And because we know Basgiath is built on runes, right? There are so many
Yeah, I mean they're
runes
all
built
over
into
the wards
Basgiath.
and stuff. Yeah, I definitely believe it. It's just it's not a fact on page. Is all.
Yes. That I can agree
Yeah.
with.
Get your facts straight, John.
Also, the fact that obviously at Basgiath they don't utilize runes in the present tense. I could buy it definitely being there, but would they know how to activate a rune?
I think leadership would.
Okay.
But also, even if all they know is that like doing this lesser magic somehow gets something going and it just keeps
Sure.
going, like you don't have to know that it's a rune doing that.
Sure.
Like when we push buttons on our electronics, I don't know how it works. I just know that's what I have to do.
Yep. That's
Well,
true.
or
That is
just
true.
like claim it as a lost art, but tell them that it existed. Like at some point, you hit a certain level of leadership before they tell you that there's venom. They test to see if you can be trusted by telling you, "Hey, there's these runes out there. We don't know how to make them, but they exist, and they're actually what powers a bunch of shit. We just don't tell people."
I can see it. Okay. Anyways, we learn that each obstacle is designed to mimic what they will be required to do, including balancing on the back of a dragon, having the strength to stay in their seat, stamina for combat, and finally mounting a dragon after all of that. In perfect dramatic timing, a chunk of rock falls from the cliffside, hitting obstacles and crashing to the ground.
There's that snowball from earlier.
Yep.
Small little personal canon. And I get this
Mhm.
from Avatar: The Last Airbender because I'm watching it
Oh,
again right now, and
I
they just
love
went
it.
through the Great Divide, and at the very beginning, when the rocks are coming down, right after the Earthbender makes the comment of like appease the gods by feeding them sacrifices, I am convinced that he pulled those rocks as he was telling the story just to like add amp and scare to the whole circumstance and like justify why people are paying him so much maybe. And so I would put money that they like have a pile of boulders at the top of the gauntlet, and right
Ready to
before
go.
everybody starts for the first time they just push a boulder over to scare them.
Or the person at the top timing everybody is an earth wielder and has knocked a boulder loose.
Yeah. And so it's a personal headcanon that rock
Yep.
was not
That was an
perfectly timed
accidental.
on accident. Yeah, no, that was on purpose. That was there to like scare the shit out of them.
Well, it works because Trina seems spooked. She is very quietly learned. She does have some friends in First Wing, and honestly, I got to this point. I'm like, who the fuck is Trina? Like when we were going through the list of like the order, I was like, who is this? And I just completely forgot about her. So Luca isn't acting so tough anymore, and she asks what happens if they cannot make it to the top. Emeterio says, "Then no dragon for you." Sawyer begins as a demonstration, and here is a little breakdown of his run. So he runs across the spinning log and hops between some raised pillars, then enters the hamster wheel, which is how I envision it. He takes a few rotations to exit, but he has no missteps. Then we have the hanging balls on the second ascent. He jumps between them and hugs them as he goes, rotating his body and leaping towards the next one. On the third ascent, we have a monkey bar variant with metal rungs, which are parallel to the cliff wall and lined up longwise, and almost
Long
like
ways. I'm sorry.
like battering rams.
That threw
And
me off so much the first
oh my
like
gosh, yes, it took me so long to be like, what is happening here?
honestly, I kind of just gave up for most of these.
So how I envision it is we have the cliff wall and we have some structures coming jutting out from which these bars are hanging because we also know that they're able to move. They are taking these bars and hand over hand each bar and then swinging it to get to the next bar to again hand over
Right.
hand. They're able to swing. Each rung is slightly separated. It requires momentum to get across. And then the second half of the third ascent is shaking pillars. The fourth ascent is the tricky spinning log staircase that Orally mentioned. So far, everything that Sawyer has done has been flawless, and Violet thinks, okay, maybe it's not that hard. Which, no, we just know that Sawyer is excellent. So, the fourth ascent is a 3-walled chimney that is at a 20-degree angle, which I'm assuming means from like a vertical position, not from a horizontal position, because then it would not be hard at all. So, it's 20 degrees. We learned that it requires a running leap up because Sawyer takes it as a run. So, I imagine that there's no trail directly beneath it, so it would be a free fall down. He makes contact with the chimney with splayed arms and legs. His body is forming an X and then hops up the rest of the way like that. And then finally, he reaches the fifth ascent, which is the warped wall from American Ninja Warrior, essentially.
Mhm.
A almost vertical wall that the top of is the top of the cliff. So Sawyer pulls it off the first try, makes it up, no problem whatsoever. Violet and Rhiannon are hyped for him, they're cheering, and Emiterio remarks that it is perfect technique. Luca is rude, as she always is, saying that dragons must have taste since he still didn't bond. Violet wonders why he didn't bond, saying if someone like him didn't, then there's no hope for the rest of them. Which I am really curious why he didn't bond, because he is amazing. I don't think we ever,
I don't
I mean, we don't know what dragons think, so
Yeah.
maybe he just wasn't as good first time around
yeah.
because he's had more
Do you think that they
practice.
get to continue to practice on the They probably do. I mean, nobody's using the gauntlet after this time, so I'm sure that the people who don't bond can just keep running it if they want to and improve.
Well, and like even if you do bond, we know that some of the wing leaders send their cadets out like early on in the timeline, like in preparation for squad battle. They send them out to practice it because your gauntlet time, they rerun the gauntlet to see if your time
Oh,
improves
yeah.
to like rank squads. That was loud. Hold on.
That's right.
The outside world intrudes.
Again. And so, like, I absolutely believe that they could rerun it. And yeah, there's a decent chance that Sawyer went back and practice. So, like, maybe we're seeing a Sawyer that wasn't the Sawyer from the year prior. Maybe
Okay.
Sawyer learned some, like, I hate to say it, but learn some humbleness or learn some humility or learn some dedication. He had to have learned something that was worthy of being bonded
Yeah.
again or being bonded.
Maybe his tenacity.
Right? And so they saw something and they decided not to kill him, clearly.
Mm-hmm. So Violet immediately recognizes a problem. She turns to Rhiannon and whispers that she is too short for that ramp. Rhiannon assures her that she is fast and thinks that if she gets enough speed, then she can make it through momentum. Which, no, but she does find a way. We'll get there. So Pryor goes first. He is struggling with those monkey bars. Trina struggles with the shaking pillars and again with the staircase. Tynan is stuck on the hanging balls, which holds Rhiannon up. Orly says it's going to fuck with Rhiannon's time. Violet encourages him, saying he needs to keep moving, but he is slipping. Riddick goads him, calling him a liability, and Violet tells him to knock it off and not to stoop to his level, noting this is where she notes that he has bulked up. So, Riddick says Tynan just makes it so easy before Riddick starts the gauntlet himself. Violet yells up at Rhiannon about a rope being between the first two balls. Rhiannon jumps on the first ball, gets the rope to Tynan, and he surprisingly climbs down. So, here we go again with little incel bitch boy who cannot cut it. And instead of looking in the mirror and realizing that it's his own fucking fault that he is not doing well, he is going to blame Violet.
We need to put that on a t-shirt. Little incel bitch boy. I would wear that t-shirt.
Incel bitch boy club.
I would wear that t-shirt.
And
Not the club one, but like, don't be a little incel bitch boy.
So Violet is next. Her heart picks up speed. She sends a quick prayer up to Zinal, noting that she hasn't spent enough time at Temple for him to really give a fuck, but might as well give it a shot. She runs up to the spinning log, tells herself that she can balance across the balance beam from hell. She says, quick feet, quick feet, quick feet, which I can't even say that fast, but, so that wasn't great. But quick feet, quick feet, quick feet. All the way across, she reaches the 4 pillars, which are spaced approximately 3 feet apart and are each higher than the last. She makes it past, but then downplays it by saying that was the easy part. And again, we have dismiss, downplay dragons, or whatever it is that we decided it was. So Violet gets through the wheel, and I wrote down that I imagine it like one of those funhouse wheels that's just like kind of turning, except for instead of going through, you're going through the side. And it's moving a hell of a lot faster because she then jumps over the door, and I think she goes out the second time.
She takes 2 spins to get it right.
Yep.
Does she? Or I guess, yeah, she jumps over it once and she gets out the second time.
Yes, yep. So she has made it through the first ascent, and she is onto those hanging balls.
Sorry.
Which she's familiar with because of motherfucking Jack Barlow. So she can conquer those balls, she can conquer these balls. Anyways. So she knows she needs to calm down and chill the fuck out because her sweaty palms will cause her to fall. As we discovered in chapter 2, our girl Violet knows one thing: facts, logic, and history. So, little callback there. I wrote, in Violet's panic class today, we are learning about dragons. So, take us to class, Professor Sorengale. So, as she maneuvers the balls, which aren't the only balls she'll be maneuvering in this book, she is tensing her muscles to prevent her shoulders from dislocating. And then we learn about Feathertails. So, they know the least about Feathertails because they have never bonded due to abhorring violence, which is the information we get, which is true of the Irids, but not true of the babies. They're just babies.
I have
Right.
like one of my only notes for the chapters right here. So she says, Feathertails reportedly abhor violence and are not suitable for bonding. And I said, or they're not suitable for bonding. They actually do love violence, but because they are literal children.
Yep. Okay, yes, so they abhor violence, and as far as the scholar she's quoting knows, one has never left the Vale in their lifetime. And doesn't Daddy Sorengale study the Feathertails? Is this Daddy Sorengale that she's quoting here?
Whoa.
That is
Potential.
Yeah, that's actually pretty likely because there's no one else
Thank
is really
you.
studying
Well,
the
but then
Feathertail. Well,
think about the fact
like,
that
people
they couldn't
know-
find his research. So it's weird that Violet can like cite his research, but they couldn't.
well,
find
if
his
she grew
research.
up with it, like reading it and stuff, like I'm sure he shared it with her as he was, well,
Yeah.
to an
Well,
extent,
I'm sure he published some things too, so there could be like this.
enough that other people know he was studying it and that there's like, this is what we know about them.
Absolutely.
I felt like a little detective with that one. I was like, oh, I'm making a connection. Anyways, Violet dismounts from the last ball and gets ready for the monkey bars. She starts talking out loud now about the green dragons who have keen intellect and are the most rational, so they excel in siege missions. Orly overhears and is like, "What the fuck, Violet? Are you studying right
You're
now?" Violet says,
multitasking?
"Yeah." Violet says it calms her down, then mutters to herself that the Scribe Quadrant looks really good right about now. So she gets onto these monkey bars as she is going. Her shoulders go from aching to throbbing, but she continues and works up momentum by swinging her legs to get from the first one to the second. As she makes contact with the second, her grip slips and she panics. She quickly dives into the orange dragon tail lore, which are the most unpredictable dragons. One hand fully slips off and her body crashes into the rock wall. Her ears ring and her vision starts to darken, but she grabs a rope as her other hand loses purchase.
I was just thinking, she's probably actually at an advantage for these like monkey bar type
Yes.
things because she's so small. Like I excelled
Yes.
at these things as a child.
Same.
Before I grew up and, got hips and body
A
weight
grown-up body.
redispersed. Yeah, so if she's like really small, she's going to have a lot easier time aside from her shoulders having their own built-in struggles. Like there's
Hmm.
less weight that she has to throw around.
Exactly. Yep. So Violet hangs out on this rope, realizing her choices are to swing to the next bar or to climb down, and Violet's stubborn Sorengale. She says, quote, "I've survived 7 weeks in this damned quadrant, and this course isn't going to beat me today." She kicks off the cliff wall and grabs onto the next rail, making it across to the 2 shaking pillars, then makes it to the next switchback. Orly is having a blast. She's right behind Violet, who says she must have hit her head because she's having fun, but still smiles. Orly advises Violet to just run across the twisty staircase. Violet notes that falling here would mean a 30 to 40-foot drop straight to the ground. Violet psychs herself up and makes quick work of it, celebrating at the end. Orly is cheering for her as well, then starts across herself. At that moment, a green dragon roars, which causes Orly to slip. She is on the third to last, but then falls onto the second to last step there. Violet lunges, reaching her arm to the last post, but she's too far and it is too late. They make eye contact. Orly's eyes are filled with terror and she falls. Flash forward to death roll the next morning.
Sorry.
It is a longer list. It is a longer list due to the first gauntlet practice, but otherwise, Violet says it's nothing special. We say goodbye to Calvin Atwater. Is that? Yep,
Yep.
Calvin Atwater and Newland Javon. Newland
Random names that
Javon.
just got filled in.
Yep, both of which were from Fourth Wing, but separate sections and squads.
It's really interesting that each of the squads from Flame Section 4th Wing actually lost one person.
Yeah, you're right. Violet has to intentionally switch from present to past tense for them in her mind. She notes that she knows half of the names being called now, so it feels much more personal. And this is the first time that death is truly getting to her. Quote, "How can this be all there is? We say their names once and then go on as if they never existed." Rhiannon sniffles as Orly's name is called. Violet wipes away a single tear, ripping a scab, but she lets the blood trickle down, and I just wrote in all caps, "The symbolism." She is wiping away the softness, wiping away the compassion, and leaving behind the blood and the brutality and letting it harden her.
Right, so like this is the first time we know that this particular death followed Violet, especially into 4th Wing, in a very big way.
Into Iron Flame.
Thank you, into Iron Flame in a very big way. And so like this is also the dropping of the snowball moment for that particular aspect. But then like one quick shout out, I guess, for those people who enjoy listening to audiobooks. We haven't talked about it a whole lot on the show, but obviously there are the 2 types of audiobooks that have been released: the traditional audiobook with 1 narrator, 2 if you count the male voice for Xaden, and then you have the newer version that's coming out, which is that like audio play style.
The graphic audio.
Thank you. I
Right?
couldn't. Yeah, graphic
Yep.
audio is the studio that does them. And so, small shout out to the graphic audio fans. If there are any among us, I have listened to the graphic audios. I enjoy them for their uses, though I don't enjoy that they miss some aspects of the book. This scene in particular is one of the few scenes that is like it hits so fucking hard.
Oh.
This one brief
I
scene.
have them on hold through my library.
I've never listened to graphic audio, but I can just picture, because they're basically like I was gonna say like a movie, but just the audio. But it's like a radio play or something where it's
Yeah.
you're living. It's not being read to you. You're living through it, like if you were watching a movie, watching through it. So you really
Mhm.
like
Their
feel like you're
tagline
there.
literally is a movie in your mind. So
The only experience I have with one of those kinds of audiobooks is do you guys know the series The Zodiac Academy, I believe, where it's like huge long books that it was like indie published initially
No.
and then it became
and
really
it's gotten a
big.
lot of popularity lately.
Yeah.
I've heard of them. I haven't read them.
So I don't know if this is A, the book, B, the specific recording of the graphic audiobook, or C, my opinion of graphic audiobooks in general. I don't know because my sample size is 1. I listened to the first like 15 minutes of the first book of that series and I had to stop and I returned it to the library because I was like, I hate this. I hate this so much, but I have no idea which of those things about it was. It might have been the book itself. It could have been that this was just a poorly done graphic audiobook, or my brain might just not like this format. So I have the Fourth Wing graphic audios on hold through my library, so I will report back with how I feel about those ones.
I will share that they were better having listened like or having read the original material the right way first. They were
Yeah.
more enjoyable.
That's what I was
Okay,
about to
and that's
say.
another point. I didn't read the Zodiac Academy.
Yeah, because you don't get some of the actual prose and detail that is in the original text. My feeling is if I listened to graphic audio, it would be better if it was one that I'd already read, because some
Mhm.
of those details are going to be missing.
And like
Yeah.
we've gotten so entrenched in the idea that context should be we don't want to just give facts and be like, oh, I'm informing you now of this, this, and this. We want to like embed it into an actual prose and description and concept. And so like you do begin to miss out on some of those prose elements simply because you don't get the descriptive words. You don't get as many adjectives because the adjective ended
Yeah.
up being built into a background sound or something else, right?
Mhm.
And that's why things are called adaptation.
So, Violet has shed a tear and wiped it away and bled down her face. And we are fast forwarding to the next night. We learned that Orly's family elected not to come and bury her, so Violet takes on the task of burning her belongings. She believes it is her duty, as she was the last person that Orly saw before she died. Dane is walking with her, but she wants to go alone. Dane is upset, which almost always is when it comes to Violet,
Mm-hmm.
saying he should have been there, but Violet correctly assesses there's literally nothing he could have done. She knows because she's replayed it a million times in her head, really struggling with that survivor's guilt.
Which is hilarious because like the thing that we hate about Dane is also the thing that ends up becoming part of Violet's like driving core, which is the need to protect and save everybody, right?
Yeah. Yes. I think that the way that she goes about it, though, is very different from the
Right,
way
no,
that
I'm not
Dane goes
comparing the
about
two
it.
of them. I'm just saying.
Yes, yes. Absolutely. Dane asks how the rest of the Gauntlet went because apparently they have not spoken about it in the past 2 days since it happened. Violet says that she did not make it all the way up. She got stuck at the chimney right after Orly went down. She is too short to reach both sides in that X formation. And in a little bit, once we're like, we get the hey, find another way to get about this. I totally thought that she was gonna do like a. Have you guys seen the Disney Tarzan movie?
Duh.
A long, long time ago. But
So you know when Jane is like falling, and then she's like between two trees with her like her toes and
Oh,
her
And her
hands.
yeah.
And she's
butt.
like, it couldn't get any worse than this. Yes,
Yeah.
her little like bustle in the back, and then it starts pouring. So I thought she was gonna do it that because she would have more reach and then could like shimmy up.
Yeah, I mean, I
instead of
think she
grabbing a
should
rope.
be flipped the other way on her back, maybe. Well, I don't know, maybe then her arms wouldn't work
Because
well.
then you're doing,
but
yeah, you're pushing force this way. And that's
And you're
not
like
comfortable.
exorcisting.
I was thinking of the legs being able to push maybe better that way, but yeah, never mind. I think your first way works better. Because yeah, your
Because
body does stretch out longer that way than it does out to the sides.
exactly, yeah. So I was like, okay, Vi, you found a different workaround there, but I'm like, if I don't know, I think that you could have, I think you could have made it work and not taken that 30-second penalty. But anyways, Violet knows that she is going to have to figure something else out because TFG, again, the final gauntlet, not the friendly giant, is do or die. What are you laughing at? The do or die or the
The do or die.
Yep,
The whole
yep.
get up it or die. That's
Yep,
just a
yep.
makes me think of a bunch of riders at the very bottom with their daggers out, just waiting for someone to give up so they can stab them.
Yeah, what happens if you just are like fuck you and climb down? Like how do they enforce this?
We have questions. They need to be answered.
Yes. Yes. Violet notes that Orly's pack is very heavy because Orly was so strong, yet she is still gone. She feels like Orly is with her as she ascends the academic tower's turret, passing the battle brief classroom and up to the roof. She's alone with the burn pit, which is an iron barrel meant only for incinerating. She apologizes before throwing the bag in as a tribute to Malik, our god of death. She then lingers at the edge and sees 3 approaching dragons, which we shortly learn is our marked squad returning from a dagger drop.
And they're coming from the west. Pause.
Yes.
Basgaith.
Are you looking at the map?
Yep. Because they were totally at Athbean. That's why they get sent to Athbean, right? This is the trip that has them getting
Is
buzzed.
that to the west?
They would be coming from the east if they were coming from Athbine.
That's
and the
what I'm
south.
saying. That's what I'm saying. Why are they coming from the west?
Approach from the west. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the way that the veil is, they kind of did like a bank around.
Well, yeah, like there is later on when Taryn comes back for the approach in Iron Flame every time, we start getting this in perspective that there's like a specific approach channel, for lack of a better phrase, that the dragons prefer that follows the river, which definitely would go along a valley, so it could make sense that the dragons are just flying in from the normal direction.
Yeah.
She says west, I see southeast.
Yeah. I guess yeah. I mean, from their conversation, it is pretty obvious that they were doing a dagger drop. But they could have come from Athbine and stopped at Orisha really quick and then looped around. Who knows?
What's also kind of crazy is we know from all of the flights that Violet takes to Athbine, once Xaden gets posted there, no. He gets posted at Somerton, which is nearby.
Somerton.
That it takes a solid 8 hours to get there, which means somehow Garrick, Bodhi, and Xaden have found 16 plus hours.
Well, could Garrick distance wield them?
This is the other question: is Garrick
Yes.
traveling all of them, which seems a little far-fetched, but I could be wrong, because he totally travels Barlow in the chest. He totally travels tons of daggers.
He travels Imogen.
When does he travel Imogen?
At
When
the very
they are-
end of Onyx
Oh,
Storm.
to get her to the fucking... Yep, okay.
Yeah. And we know at that point he's like, I am like out of juice, but he's been like moving things around all day. So I mean, I suppose if maybe one way, I don't know, maybe he could cut the journey considerably.
I could buy that. I could definitely buy that. It would require, I would assume, them all touching, which I don't know how comfortable the dragons are getting cozy with each other.
Maybe they just touch tails or something.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay. You said touch tails and I heard touch tips.
the chips.
You're welcome. This is what the smutty gay mind brings you.
On the other hand, they could do little dragon high fives.
Or just, like, stretch their wings out and brush up against each other with wings. Like, many ways.
Yeah. I mean, we learned from Tarn that, like, for the cause, they're kind of willing to, like, bend a few of their more stricter typical rules, so yeah, well, they might not like it. They're like, well, I mean, how else are we going to get there? So, she is lingering. She is looking at the gauntlet. She's wondering who's going to be the next to fall victim, and that little angel on her shoulder tells her that it will not be her. She's not sure if it's because she's going to conquer the gauntlet or run, which she desperately doesn't want to do, but she's like, I'll examine that at a later time. I don't know why I'm feeling this way. She heads back down. We've got a PDA couple at the courtyard who are deciding whether or not to suck each other's faces or have a little midnight stroll. Later, they decide on the former.
Because who doesn't want to suck faces?
Amen. So Violet heads towards the little alcove where she sat with Dane and traded knees with Rhiannon after Parapet, as we know. I got a good callback to both of you in this in this chapter. Violet feels like it has to mean something that she has survived this long, and she feels like there's a chance that maybe, just maybe, she belongs here and will make it. The door leading to the Gauntlet training field, hallway, corridor, path, whatever you want to call that, opens.
Tunnel.
A tunnel, thank you.
Right from the book.
I'm not looking at the book, I'm looking at my notes. Yes, tunnel opens, and in comes Xaden, Garrick, and Bodhi. Violet wonders what they were doing, and we hear Bodhi say that there must be something more that they can do. Garrick says, we're doing all that we can. Her spidey senses start tingling, and she knows that Xaden knows that she is there. He stops mid-step, and he stops mid-step. Garrick knows something is up. Xaden tells him, go on ahead. And Violet is mad instead. Nope. I wrote mad instead of angry. Those are the same things. Those are the same things, Abby. She is mad instead of afraid is the correct thing there. So
I also think this is the first time that I mean,
No,
I guess
this
she
is not
sees
the
him
first scalp
stop, but I was
purple.
gonna say no, not the first scalp purple. Is this the first time that she feels that and then recognizes that he knows something? Because she says he knows I'm here. Like, it could just be because she saw him stop, but I don't think I've seen her like connect those dots before.
I think this is her first dot connection, yeah, because her scalp prickles and he stops mid-step. So I think that's kind of she's like, ah, yes.
It's at least
He
being put in the
knows.
back of her mind, even if she isn't aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, remember, she still thinks it's just the shadows.
Mm-hmm. So, Violet is mad instead of afraid, wishing he would just get killing her over with already. Xaden sends the other boys along and then turns to Violet. She stands and moves closer, telling him to save the I command the shadows shit. He folds his arms, which is a classic Xaden move, and asks whether she's going to question where he has been.
When did folding one's arms become a classic Xaden move?
He's always...
It's the aloof, distant...
Every scene, I'm like, and then he crosses his massive arms over his massive chest, and he's just always... Xaden asks whether she is going to question where he's been. Violet says in her mind that she just doesn't have the energy to feel scared right now. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think you're scared anymore. I think you're just like, this guy does different things to my body than fear. So, she says she doesn't care where he's been. And he realizes with his intention reading that she really doesn't care. He asks what she's doing, and she says, honestly, she's debating running away. And she mockingly asks if he'd like to share what he's doing. He says, same. And she thinks he's being sarcastic, but I don't think he is.
No, he's really...
He's definitely...
No, because him and his cousin were just fighting about whether or not they're doing enough.
Yep.
And the only way they can do more is to get the fuck out.
Yep. He's thinking of bouncing too.
Mm-hmm.
She asks if he is going to kill her because she's annoyed, and he says he hasn't decided. His gaze narrows on her cheek, and I'm like, OMG. He's like, she's hurt. What happened? She wants him to choose whether or not he's going to kill her so she can just plan her day. And he smirks and asks if he is affecting her schedule. She just wants to know her chances so she can decide what to do. He smiles, saying he's never been hit on like this. And she's like, I didn't mean my chances like that, Zayden. So she starts to storm off because she's so indignant that he even would suggest that she is hitting on him, because of course she's not. But he lightly yet firmly grabs her wrist and pulls her close, and then asks, chances at what? She says nothing because he just wouldn't understand. But he insists, saying not to make him ask a third time, ominously, which is contrasting with his soft grip. And then we get Zayden's scent. And here's her second candle in her vengeful merch shop. He smells like mint.
The Rin Mint.
Yes. Mint leather and a citrusy, florally something in between smell.
In addition to dragon. Because remember, he was just riding his dragon.
Yes.
Sweat, probably. They never mentioned that.
She says, what are her chances? Her chances at surviving, because she cannot get past the gauntlet. He calmly says, I see. She says, you don't. You're probably thrilled. And then we get an amazing interaction here that I am going to be reading because I can't do it justice. I can't convey it as well as Rebecca can here. So, page 129, class, if you want to follow along at home. Killing you wouldn't be any trouble, Violence. It's leaving you alive that seems to cause the majority of my trouble. My gaze swings up to clash with his, but his face is unreadable, cloaked in shadow. Go figure. Sorry to be a hassle. Sarcasm drips from my voice. You know the problem with this place? I tug my arm back again, but he holds fast. Besides you touching things that don't belong to you, my eyes narrow on him. I'm sure you're going to tell me. My stomach flutters as his thumb brushes my pulse and he releases my wrist. Ah! Amazing. I have no notes. Just that. Just amazing. So
he says, it's leaving you alive that seems to cause the majority of my trouble. And it's not only because he has to keep her alive for his pact, but she keeps finding things out that could blow his cover, and he can't let her die.
And at the same time, he doesn't trust her to not blow his cover because this is the fucking general's daughter.
Yep. So he's like, great, another problem that I have to juggle. Gotta keep an eye on her. Violet answers that the problem with this place is hope. Hope. She knows that this is a death sentence for her, especially since she has been trained as a scribe her whole life. But what Mama Sorrengail says goes, and she couldn't ignore her order. Zayden goes, well, yeah, you could have. Just might not have liked how that went for you. And Violet rolls her eyes but leans in, much to her own embarrassment, which I can heavily relate to. Just doing things that I'm like, why am I doing this? But I just can't stop. Violet says she's made it 2 months against all odds, and now she's hopeful. He assesses that she wants to give up now that a squad mate has died, and she's unable to make it up the chimney, which I wrote, how would he know? Dane didn't even know. But then he quickly says he has a way of knowing things.
I wonder what that is.
But he also knows Dane's plan to get her to the Scribe's Quadrant, which freaks her out a little bit. She's like, how the hell do you know about that? You could get Dane in so much trouble. And he says he knows everything. The shadows have the secrets. And it's just like a very...
I like how right at that moment, the darkness swirls around them. And I'm like, this is him flexing his shadows.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
I'm just waiting for a shadow to like tap her on the shoulder and be like, hello, it's me.
Yeah, those shadows swirl around them. Ugh, amazing. They both have dirt on each other now that Mama Sorrengail would be very interested in hearing in, but neither of them is going to tell, but they're not fully convinced that the other one will not. So, I have another quote here, page 130. This is a good one. Okay. He holds my gaze locked with his. Here's the thing, Sorengale. Hope is a fickle, dangerous thing. It steals your focus and aims it toward the possibilities instead of keeping it where it belongs, on the probabilities. So I'm supposed to what? Not hope that I live, just plan for death? You're supposed to focus on the things that can kill you so you find ways to not die. He shakes his head. I can barely count the number of people in this quadrant who want you dead, either as revenge against your mother or because you're just really good at pissing people off. But you're still here, defying the odds. Shadows wrap around me, and I swear I feel a caress along the side of my wounded cheek. It's been rather surprising to watch, actually. Ah!
Quick pause on the fact that, like, he says we're not supposed to be planning for death, but on a, like, theological / economic level, it's inevitable, so why wouldn't you plan for it? Sorry. I get the sentiment, but I want to be a smartass about it so bad.
He's planning on a death of old age as much as he can. Eliminating the factors.
Look, John, you can have 2 plans.
The variables.
You can have
2 plans.
You can have the plan for when you inevitably die, but then you also have the plan that you're working on to hopefully not die yet.
Do not make me start talking about post hoc adverse selection processes.
I just when the darkness first swirls around them, she says he could do anything to me in here and no one would be the wiser. But then all he does is
chooses
to caress her
caress her. He could do anything to her and no one could see, and he's like, no one can see, so I'm gonna be tender.
I'm more than happy for him to caress me in any place he wants.
Amen, John. Amen. So, Violet says, well, glad you're enjoying it. I'm going to bed. But he is right behind her and catches the door, and then we have another excellent exchange, and I just wrote ugh in all caps, so, to end the chapter. Maybe if you stopped sulking in your self-pity, you'd see that you have everything you need to scale the gauntlet, he calls after me, his voice echoing down the hallway. Myself what? I turn around, my jaw dropping. People die, he says slowly, his jaw ticking before he drags in a deep breath. It's going to happen over and over again. It's the nature of what happens here. What makes you a writer is what you do after people die. You want to know why you're still alive? Because you're the scale I currently judge myself against every night. Every day I let you live, I get to convince myself that there's still a part of me that's a decent person. So if you want to quit, then please, spare me the temptation and fucking quit. But if you want to do something, then do it. I'm too short to span the distance, I hiss, uncaring that anyone could hear us. The right way isn't the only way. Figure it out. Then he turns and walks away. Fuck him. And that's the end of the chapter. So good. Again, Violet, not yet. Be patient, honey. It's coming. You'll get to fuck him. Not quite yet. It's okay.
But not that far off either.
Not that far off.
And girl, Lord knows that she needs it.
This is the kick in the ass that she fucking needs. And she's like so angry and resistant, but getting angry is what gets her to do good.
That wasn't what I was talking about. I just meant that she needs a good dickin'.
Oh.
No.
Oh, that too.
Things can be true.
Both.
This little rant, like, he's so self-restrained in this rant because, okay, so if we go back to 129, she literally tells him, someone like you would never get it, but I knew coming here was a death sentence. As if she's not talking to the oldest marked one who got literally sent here as a death sentence and is responsible for all of the other marked ones.
Yes, absolutely. But, I mean, you can also kind of see, like, look at their pedigrees, for lack of a better word, of, you know, like, he is more equipped. Even if he was sent as a death sentence, he was much more equipped to survive than she is. So I think that's where she's coming from. But yeah, it is a little like, okay, Violet, not everything's about you, girl.
And you're like talking to the person who would get it the most.
Yeah.
And he's just like, instead of like calling you out or blowing up at you, I'm just going to help you get your act together and
oh, he wants her to succeed so bad, you guys. Yeah, he's given her everything that I mean, he says you have everything you need, but I think he's the final little ingredient on what she needs. She needs a little kick in the ass. She needs motivation the correct way by telling her, then fucking quit if you can't hack it. And she's like, how fucking dare you? Ugh. They're perfect for each other.
Mhm.
That is the end of chapter 10. We're already next chapter, you guys. We're already at the final
I
gauntlet,
know.
which is so
Yeah.
wild.
And then presentation, and then threshing.
And then threshing.
Like, it's just gonna start hitting faster and faster and faster. It's not gonna slow down.
Yep, we're right in
Nope,
the meat of the
nope.
book now.
hmm And we were unfortunately off mic talking about this a little bit earlier, but it's so wild that we start on such like a small level where we are covering one day over 3 chapters, and then the second day over 3 chapters, and then it's like, all right, let's get moving, let's get going, and we are maybe a quarter of the way through the book.
Let's just go with quarter. That seems safe.
We're a quarter of the way through, and we're already at the final gauntlet, and we're already about to get dragons. And I remember the first time that I read the series just being like, totally thinking that the whole first book was going to be getting to the dragons, and it's like, oh no, we're here already. Like, let's do it.
I don't remember what I like thought or expected. I just remember that once it starts picking up like this, I definitely started like one more chapter. Okay, I have to read a little more, and like staying up late on
Yes.
work nights to read this. Not
Yep.
just because I
Yep.
had to get the books back to John before he moved, but also because I just didn't want to put it down.
I remember you saying
Yeah.
that, like, you just kept one more chaptering to the point that you were able to read the book a second time before you had to get them back to me because you didn't
Yes.
remember everything.
Yes, I read both books twice in the 3 weeks or whatever that I had.
John, you had a really good point earlier off mic about the nature of it picking up and jumping in time.
Right, like the fact that, like, realistically think about it, where we're at right now. We just finished chapter 10, and we're basically 3 months in now. Because Final Gauntlet is at that 3-month mark. We started Gauntlet 2 months in, had 1 month of practice, and then we're just going for it here. But we're getting to this point where the first, 6 chapters were basically 1 week. We jumped, and we jumped, and now it's just gonna jump and jump and jump and jump until we're just bouncing from major scene to major scene, and yo.
Yep, that's a wild ride.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us for this chapter. And until next time, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
I forgot words.
I was like, oh no, is Abby gonna pick a new catchphrase? Like, keep riding.
Blame on! Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Wing Readers. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky at The Wing Readers, or you can send us an email at thewingreaders@gmail.com. It would mean the world to us for you to subscribe and rate us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. New episodes drop every Tuesday. We'll see you in Chapter 11.